I call to order the undergraduate student government General Assembly meeting at 7:02 p.m. Can the Secretary please call roll?
President Gallo.
President voting.
Vice President Gladys.
President voting.
Vice President Lee.
President voting.
Vice President Beckman.
President voting.
Vice President Conway.
President voting.
Vice President Torres.
President voting.
Acting Teachers Officer and General Development Chairman McKee.
Present.
Speaker Choi.
Present.
Treasurer Astley. Treasurer Toomey.
Present.
Treasurer Kennedy.
Present.
Representative Agarwal.
President voting.
Representative Cortez. Representative Digby.
President voting.
Representative Gokanoff.
President voting.
Representative Kanu.
President voting.
Representative Mahmood.
Proxy.
Representative Mather.
President voting.
Representative Sue. Representative Williams.
President voting.
Representative Shaw. Representative Fenelon.
President voting.
Representative Lambert.
President voting.
Representative Macedonia.
President voting.
Representative Feaster.
President voting.
Representative Rao.
President voting.
Representative Soretti.
President voting.
Representative Sumsky.
Present.
Representative Sullivan.
President voting.
Representative Shrikam.
President voting.
Representative Wong. Representative Zhang.
President voting.
Representative Alvarado. Representative Parmar.
President voting.
Representative Potter.
President voting.
Representative Rangaswamy. Representative Cook.
President voting.
Representative Darren. Representative Wong. Representative Zhao.
President voting.
Representative Palmieri.
President voting.
Representative Pereira.
President voting.
Representative Taylor.
President voting.
Representative Hall.
President voting.
Representative Ward.
President voting.
Representative Boyster.
President voting.
Representative Deschamps.
President voting.
So before we get started, Secretary Ma actually wanted to remind all of you that today, because we do have a lot of things to get covered, including internal elections and General Assembly bills and resolutions, we do need quorum in order to pass a lot of these things and continue the meeting. So if you do have to leave early and answer a question of personal privilege, and you have not emailed Secretary Ma before, I will be asking your reason for excusal. And so please be prepared with an answer before you leave if that is the case. All right? And with that, we'll move forward with our meeting. Is there any old business tonight? Representative Williams.
I move to close nominations for the 2014-2015 Speaker of the Assembly.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded to close nominations for Speaker of the Assembly. So I believe Mr. McKee has a suggestion on our voting procedure.
So, like we did last year, my proposal for doing this, and we'll see if anybody dissents, hopefully not, is to prevent any conflicts, since we have a couple people who are running for multiple positions. So to make it a game of who does the Assembly want in which position instead of which nomination do we happen to close first. My proposal is that we vote on each of these individually, and that candidates will give speeches individually, we'll do voting, we'll tabulate the votes. I've asked the candidates who are in multiple races, and if any more crop up as we go through nominations, then I'll have them fill out a card indicating their preference. So if candidate A, say, wins two different positions, say internal development chair and speaker, then that person, I will go to their preference card and say which one of these two positions do you prefer, given that assembly voted them in the winner in both races. And then that's how we'll determine which position they get. The other position will recalculate the votes based off of the instant runoff preferences that you guys will have on your ballots. Does that make sense to everyone?
Are there any questions for Mr. McKee? Representative Pereira.
So just to make sure, even if a person won a previous election, we vote as if we're disregarding the previous one?
So I'll be collecting votes and tallying them, but we won't release the results until we have a winner in all of the positions. So sort of, yeah, you'll be voting in each position. So after we get through speaker, we'll just keep going through positions, and I'll be tallying ballots. At the end, we'll figure out if anybody won multiple positions, and if they did, then we'll sort it out together.
Representative Williams.
And to clarify, the only position that is technically immune from this is Elections Commission for the fall, since that is not exclusive.
It is actually, because you cannot be both Speaker of the Assembly and the Fall Elections Commissioner. So it does fall under this
Any other questions for Mr. McKee? Alright, so I am going to go by voice vote for this one, so all those in favor of that voting procedure, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Ayes have it, the motion is adopted, Mr. McKee's proposal is adopted. Before we begin, we're actually going to take another 2-second segue. I believe we have one representative who has not been inducted yet, so he can officially vote. Mr. Alex, what's your last name? Yeah, could you please step up to the front? And President Gallo?
Okay, so, like I just said, please repeat after me. I state your name.
Alex Chan.
Oh yeah, you need to figure out. I detested that. I state your name.
I, Alex Chan,
Do solemnly swear as a representative of the USG
do solemnly swear as a representative of USG
to responsibly represent my constituency to the best of my ability.
to responsibly represent my constituency to the best of my abilities.
I promise to faithfully uphold the Constitution
I promise to faithfully uphold the Constitution
and all appropriate bylaws.
and all appropriate bylaws.
As an elected representative to the USG,
As an elected representative to the USG,
I further pledge to serve the students of Case Western Reserve University
I further pledge to serve the students of the Case Western Reserve University
with integrity and honesty.
with integrity and honesty.
Congratulations.
And with that, we are going to proceed with old business. Nominations for the Speaker's Assembly has been closed. I believe we have 3 candidates here with us tonight. That is Vice President Beckman, Representative Paul, and myself, Speaker Choi. Because I'm unable to run this meeting, President Gallo, I'm going to pass the gavel to you.
Fun fact, I ran for president just for this moment, so. So, back into business, we are currently in, Did we vote out there?
No, we just closed nominations. We can pick 2 of us.
Okay, so Peter and, I'll submit it all. Peter and Michi, Justin. Justin is going to take the podium first. And then Peter and Michi, could you please step outside? Sorry, my nerves. I was really not the sense. VP Beckman, you will have 3 minutes to say what you would like and answer any questions from the General Assembly.
Excellent, thank you. Well, hello GA, thank you for this wonderful opportunity to run to be your speaker for the 2014-2015 academic school year. A lot of the information that I'm going to go through is in my letter of intent, so please read through that as I speak, but I want to hit on a couple of big points. First, one reason why I like to be speaker is I feel comfortable speaking in front of GA. I think over the year I've improved greatly on my ability to facilitate discussion in both my committee and also my outside involvement outside of USG. I think that learning Robert's rules and studying that up over the summer will be in a great position to take our GA efficiency to the next level and really facilitate our meetings and getting our newer representatives to participate in discussion. I think with my knowledge and background of USG, I'd be a really positive role model for our newer representatives. I'm looking for ways to get further involved in USG, sitting in front of GA every week. One thing that I'm also very excited to work with is the caucus system and looking for new ways to bring new levels of structure and new ways to change that up. I'm going to speak about the caucus model a little bit more. I didn't go really too much into detail in my letter, but my vision for the caucuses is that their mission is entirely caucus determined and driven. Something that I envision changing year to year by the membership of that individual caucus, and that can be worked out through a workshop or developmental session model, co-facilitated by both the speaker and the IB chair, creating a structured kind of layout, a structured workshop to develop what official change that really needs to make for the, in terms of our constitution, how the caucuses work, is just tightening the definition a little bit more and providing some additional structure of the possibilities or types of initiatives that caucuses could pursue, but not limiting it, but rather providing that framework so that our representatives in the caucuses could, feel empowered to take that, kind of core definition in our constitution and run with it, creating their own mission and finding their own ways to, really embrace their opportunities on campus. Like I said, just providing a bit more structure on the possible types of initiatives and projects they could have. And I think in this role that I could be a very good role model to help empower our representatives to, do a bit more with the caucuses and, really make use of those awesome faculty advisors that we implemented this year. With that, I'm going to turn it over for questions from the assembly. VP Lee.
What's your opinion on the speakers committee?
So I'm actually against the idea of the caucus speaker committee. One reason being I think it creates a weird kind of pseudo-executive position that isn't really necessary. I think the speakers are, a great, step-up leadership role in leading the caucuses, but I think anything the speaker committee could achieve and accomplish could be handled through, more informal speakers meetings between the speaker of the assembly and the speakers of the caucuses. I don't think the types of things that would come out of the committee, necessarily mandate a committee.
Okay, thank you, VP Beckman, for your time. If you could please step outside. Next up, we will hear from Nishu. Nishu. Nishu, not Peter. Nishu, not Peter. Nishu. It's okay. You will have 3 minutes to tell us about yourself and why you feel you are suitable for this position, and then along with any questions or answers you generally may have. And you may start.
So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Nishu Paul. I've been in USG for about 2 semesters now. In my time, I've served on the Academic Affairs Committee, and I've been speaker of the First Year Caucus this year. I think, the first and foremost, most important thing about being speaker is being able to set a tone in GA that makes everyone here feel comfortable about voicing their opinion. I want everyone in this room to not have any reservations when it comes to, a certain discussion topic in terms of, saying their viewpoint. But I think that being speaker is about more than just setting a tone that makes everyone feel comfortable. I want to really improve our caucus system here in USG. Our caucus system has been an issue for several years now, but it's only very recently, actually in March, that we've actually begun to take solid steps to address this. In the beginning of the year, I suggested that in one of our speakers meetings that we create a speakers committee. The same way that exec members like VPs are able to get feedback on their committees, speakers of their caucuses would be able to get feedback from the speakers committee. In that way, caucuses would be able to have more purpose and direction, so that our caucuses in general could be more efficient and we'd all have a better understanding about what our respective caucus is supposed to do. Something else that I suggested early in the semester is that we do speaker evaluations. The same way that we do VP evaluations that let us, have a stronger influence in the way we want our committees to run and the way we want to see our VPs lead, we'd be able to see the same thing in this speaker evaluation. So, another thing, when it comes to Robert's Rules, I've had 4 years of experience in Robert's Rules as a member of my Model UN team in high school, and I plan to thoroughly review them over the summer. Also, as speaker, I know I'd have to have a very thorough knowledge of the governing documents of USG, and I've already started to begin thoroughly going through that, and I plan to finish doing that over the summer. I've already begun to attend exec meetings this semester because I want to have a stronger influence in the long-term visioning and planning of our organization. And I think that as speaker, I could continue that sort of commitment. Are there any questions?
So you talked about being for a speakers committee. One point of debate that came up in different debates with the speakers committee was representatives having a hard time putting their time within USG to both the committee and the caucus, especially if the speaker of their caucus is expecting them to only dedicate time to them because the speaker themselves don't belong to, does not belong to the committee. How would you plan to address that?
I think one of provide that sort of support to their caucus. I think what this really is doing is making sure that our caucus meetings go more efficiently in general, not necessarily putting more work on the representatives.
Is there one more question for the speaker? Mr. Williams.
What excites you most about becoming speaker?
I think the biggest thing is that if you look in our Constitution, I know this sounds really, really lame, but our Constitution looks so awesome, except for this part where it comes to talking about caucuses, and then it says, caucuses are made of representatives, and then it stops. And that, that really, upsets me that we have such an awesome organization in USG, and everything in here is really thoroughly defined, except for that part, right? So when it comes to being speaker, I really want to change that.
Thank you for your time. If you could please step outside. And now is current speaker. Candidate Choi, you'll have 3 minutes to tell us about yourself and why you believe you are best fit for this position, and answer any questions that the General Assembly may have. You may start now.
So when I first came to the position as speaker, I realized that the position was something kind of unique. Because you don't have a voice in the assembly, but you still have an opportunity to set the tone and a precedence for how the General Assembly meetings run. And my goal this year was really to keep it lighthearted and kind of fill it with fun without compromising quality or efficiency of the meeting itself. And I think that I've been able to do that really effectively this year. One of the things that I really worked on a lot with Exec was actually altering the structure of GA. And that's a subtle difference that many of you may have not noticed. But in the past, it wasn't as discussion-based. We had more reports and we had more information being thrown out. Actually, at one of the General Assembly meetings, Secretary Ma even took down the names of all the people who spoke. And we found out that we've gotten more representatives discussing than ever before. And I think a huge part of that was because of the discussion-based method that we went towards. Some of the initiatives that I'm starting this year, I'm really excited about, that I want to keep going on and continue into next year, which includes the Legacy Binder project that I really want to work with next year's ID chair on. And basically, it's a binder chock full of material so that the transition will be smoother from one caucus to the next caucus between election cycles. And the second idea is a constitutional amendment for a speakers committee. So this was something that was newly adopted as kind of like a beta testing project this year. But I really want all the speakers to be able to interact with each other so that the other caucuses can share information and also have a very close connection with me as the speaker and gain better information. Some of the new initiatives are summarized in the letter of intent, so I won't go over all of them, but I'm going to go over my favorite one, which is basically the education on bills and resolutions. And this isn't just about how to write bills and resolutions, but it's more about how to get the past bills and resolutions and use it to your own advantage. So I really feel like when you go to a faculty member and you say, the students want more lab equipment, that's a lot weaker than saying, well, we recently passed a bill or resolution with the student elected officials of the undergraduate student government who are in favor of having more lab equipment. That's a much more powerful statement. So the purpose of the bills and resolutions isn't just how to teach you how to write it and how to use it, but it's really, I want every representative to feel very confident and empowered that whatever complaint or issue that they want to bring up in the assembly or whatever change that they want to see on campus, that they'll be confident enough to do it, write it on a bill and resolution, pass it, and then really use that idea into action. So I'm all about communication also. So if there's any other suggestions that you want to throw at me, I am definitely open to them. So with that, I'm open for any questions.
Questions for the speaker? Treasurer Kennedy.
As the incumbent, what do you think the biggest advantage you have in the second term is?
So I think that there's a lot of developing projects that have recently started, and I think that even when last year I was running for speaker, I actually told a lot of the assembly members, my goal is to carry on the work of Matt McKee, and this year what I really want to do is start off a lot of things, the Legacy Binder project, the constitutional amendment, and really see it pull through. I also think I have a very good vision on understanding both the GA side as well as the internal caucus development side that really needs a lot of work on both ends.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Candidate Choi / Speaker Choi, if you could please step outside. And Mr. McKee, if you could just stay outside. Okay. We need him because he knows incorrectly.
business. Any other old business from the assembly tonight? Representative Lambert.
I move to close nominations for the 2014-2015 ID chair.
Second.
Moved and seconded to close nominations for internal development chairman. We have two candidates here with us tonight, Representative Feaster and Representative Brennan. We'll go in the order that the letter of intent were submitted, which I believe is Representative Brennan first. So you have the podium. Representative Feaster, please step outside the door. Representative Brennan, you have 3 minutes on the clock and any time left remaining from your speech. If you'd like to question and answer from the assembly. And you may begin when you're ready.
Thank you. Hi guys. Okay, so I just have a little story to share with you. So when I joined USG last year, I was really, really scared. I was a freshman joining GA as a nursing representative, and I only knew one person at the time. He was actually my RA, Andrew Brown. And I really didn't know what it meant to be in USG beyond that we would try to help our campus out in some way. So that was until Tom Dooner, the ID chair, last year approached me and asked me to grab coffee with him. So before our meeting, I was really nervous. I was worried that he would think I was stupid because I didn't know about the different committees. I was nervous that I'd find out that USG had all these commitments and I just couldn't handle it on top of everything else I had to do with nursing. But the second that I walked in there, Tom had this huge smile on his face, and he told me how excited he was to have a nursing representative joining USG. And by the end of the meeting, I no longer had any worries about USG because he was just so nice to me. And he answered all my questions. So more importantly though, by the end of the meeting, he also told me that if I ever needed anything, that he was a friendly face that I could approach. And Matt McKee, as the ID chair, has done the same thing to all of you. And if elected to ID chair, I would make that a personal goal of mine to ensure that everyone here, including the new members, knew that I was a friendly face to approach. But in addition, I would continue to work with the Fund Committee. As I've already been a part of the Fund Committee this whole year, I've seen how having these events are essential to the growth and development of every member of USG, and I see how it helps us become closer, which makes us more effective as a General Assembly. So I also believe that the Internal Development Chair is the biggest cheerleader for everyone here. They should always have, everyone here should have a friendly face and feel that they can approach the ID chair and that they have someone to help them with anything they need. And I've personally had a ton of experience with this. I am currently a residential assistant and a nursing student, so it's continuously my job to make sure that someone has that person to listen to whenever they're having a rough day, or someone there to cheer them on and push them a little bit harder just so they can accomplish something that they've been working on for a really long time. And there's something so magical about watching someone achieve that by being their biggest supporter, and I would love to continue to do just that as your Internal Development Chair.
Any questions? We'll take them. Vice President Brennan.
What's one skill you think every member of the USG should have developed?
I think the ability to communicate is essential. A lot of what we do here is about being able to communicate with either the entire campus or each other, and without that essential skill, I don't believe that we'd be able to accomplish that as much as we do, and I would feel that as the ID chair would really try to help everyone improve their ability to communicate.
All right, thank you, Representative Brennan. Could you bring in Representative Feaster, please? Representative Feaster, you have 3 minutes on the clock for your speech, and any time left remaining will be left for question and answer from the assembly, and you may begin when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. I think everyone knows me, but I'm Sarah Kate. And I'm running for ID chair because I believe that there are two things that people remember about their time in USG. One is the fun things that you do outside of GA, because we know GA is blast, but outside GA, and then the effectiveness that they had on a certain issue or project that they care about. And I view the job as the ID chair to facilitate both of those ends, to make the assembly as happy and fulfilled in their positions as possible. In my letter of intent, you can see I talked about like I want to have coffee with everybody at the beginning of the year, to help everybody find sort of their niche, what they're looking for, and where I think they can find it. I think I know USG well enough by this point. This is my third year in USG that I'll be able to help them sort of navigate. Specifically, I know that I'm ready to be an active member of exec. I've been sort of dancing around whether or not I want to do it for a long time, and I think that I'm ready, and I think I've shown that in my participation in GA and in my committees. On PR, I headed up the election committee now, which was awesome. And I lead the Twitter feed now that has me gained 40 followers since I took over. On student life, I've had a number of initiatives, library study rooms, crew tube, stuff like that. And I think I'm ready to change my focus from external to internal. I know I want to improve the way that USG is viewed, and there's one way to do that, which is through PR, and the other way to do that is to improve us from the inside and make our representatives happier. And I think that's the job of the ID chair. I want to re-energize retreats, specifically the goal-setting portions, both personal and group for committees, to make sure people are all on track. And I want to have events. I really want to have a USG formal, real bad. So that would be a new sort of fun committee event that I'd like to put together. And finally, everyone's talking about the caucus system, so I guess I'll address my opinions on it. I am personally not in favor of a speakers committee. I am actually in favor of eliminating the caucuses altogether and consolidating their roles under the academic affairs committee. However, I'm not set in stone. I'm certainly open to conversation with whoever the speaker is voted if I am elected, and the current caucus speakers. But in my mind, the effectiveness of the caucuses is limited. The sort of investment that representatives have in the caucuses is limited, and I think that we can more effectively achieve the goals through a different kind of setup. And with that, I'll take questions.
Any questions for the candidate?
Come on.
Member Kennedy.
What's the number one thing that you think current ID chair, acting chief judicial officer, Matt McKee has done correctly this year?
Okay, that's easy. Maps is obviously huge shoes to fill, and that's very intimidating. And the specific thing that I think that he has done really well is increase our number of social activities. I went to the Monsters game, I went to the USG sleepover, both like just really fun, random. He also like just has stuff at Sigma Nu sometimes, like he'll just invite us all to, which is totally not part of his position. But it's just like to facilitate the fact that we're all friends and we hang out together. And to just create that sense of community that I think GA doesn't always afford.
Thank you, Representative Easter. And with that, we'll move into discussion regarding the candidates. Representative Shrikant, you have 3 minutes on the clock for your speech, and any question and answers left for, any time left over is left for question and answer technically assembly. And you may begin when you're ready.
Hi GA, so I've been in USG for 2 years, and I've been in the role of representative, and this semester I had the opportunity to be a speaker. And I've been in student life committee for 2 years, and in these roles I've learned how to communicate with administration, complete initiatives, and organize events. And I think these are really important because I've learned to maintain email correspondence in addition to organize my documents and agendas and minutes, which would be really good for secretary. As secretary, I think one of the important things is GA has to be efficient, but I also think it should be fun. It should definitely be something that we look forward to. And one of the things that I want to do is maybe have a couple minutes before GA where we can just hang out and maybe get Starbucks, or we could play a game like Cards Against Humanities. Or another thing I was thinking about is having birthday cards, because everybody's birthday is really important because you're all really awesome people. So I would be happy to have a birthday card for each of you. And basically that's kind of what I want to do, make sure GA is fun and organized and everything. And I believe that I could do this role. In addition, I really want to work with everyone to make sure that USG feels like home. So I'm open to questions.
Any questions for Representative Shrikant? if you could get Vice President Beckman, please. Vice President Beckman. Vice President Beckman, you have 3 minutes on the clock for your speech. Any time left remaining will be left for question and answer from the assembly. And you may begin when you're ready.
Awesome, thank you. Hello again, GA. Why I'm interested in secretary, I detailed 3 wonderful bullet points for you in my letter of intent, so please read over those, and I'm open to any questions you might have.
Any questions from the assembly? Dr. Kennedy.
What roles within GA besides taking minutes do the secretary needs to do?
Sure. I think the secretary also takes attendance. I think the secretary has a unique position in that they get to maintain a very objective view of what's happening in the assembly and recording those, what different representatives say, what different VPs say. I think the secretary can have a voice. I know traditionally the secretary has been silent throughout most of our meetings and is hesitant to share opinions normally, just to maintain that objective opinion. But I think that in certain situations, I think it's necessitated that as secretary, I feel that I could make my point heard while maintaining that objective, kind of point, recording everything as said.
Any other questions for Vice President Beckman? Representative Surratt.
Why do you want to be secretary?
Why do I want to be secretary? I think secretary would be a unique position to be in because in my bullet point 3, my additional free time, I think the responsibilities of secretary, there are fewer in relation to some of the other positions in USG. And I think with that free time, it would give me an opportunity to invest myself more in other areas of USG. So whether it's helping the speaker and ID chair with the caucuses, whether it's maybe helping the president or some of the other VPs attend meetings or things like that, providing my assistance across the board, being a resource, my knowledge and background in USG, providing it that way, and helping out our representatives wherever I can.
Secretary Moore.
Taking minutes and writing agendas can at times get a little bit boring, I guess. What would you do to make it, I guess, more fun both for yourself and also for the GA?
I do really like the tradition of hiding questions and bringing goodies into GA. But as far as, I'm not entirely sure of what new innovative ways I could, or what I could develop, but I would definitely look to, find some new things to do. Hide even more things, maybe puzzles. Maybe you could, if you cut the agenda down into and shift it up one line, maybe it reads an entirely different agenda or something. Like a fun little activity.
We have time for one more question. Vice President Gladys.
What's your typing speed?
I don't really know. I don't know my routine, so.
All right, thank you, Vice President Beckman.
Thank you, G.
Representative Rowe. Please bring in Representative Paul. Representative Paul, you have 3 minutes on the clock, and any time left over is left for question and answer from the assembly. And you may begin when you're ready.
Okay, hey guys. So, as secretary, I know that the Constitution kind of states that there's a very specific set of roles that the secretary does. That, the role is to keep minutes during GA, and to make sure that the agenda is sent out on time. And I want to emphasize that I'm someone that I think I'm very well organized and can manage those roles effectively. But more importantly, I think that the experiences that I've had in USG this year have kind of helped me fill this other sort of role that a secretary has. I think a secretary is also kind of the person who fills all of the little niches in USG that aren't really part of anybody's roles. There's someone who kind of helps out when help is needed. And I really want to be the person to fill that role as well. Like I mentioned earlier, I have been coming to exec meetings for some portion of the semester. So I do also want to contribute to that long-term vision and planning in USG. And I think I can do that really well as secretary. Also, when it comes to internal development, I really want to see every representative in this organization be the best version of themselves. So when it comes to being a secretary, maybe workshops that help develop certain professional skills, like how to speak to administrators, maybe how to write a professional email, whatever you feel like you need. I'd love to be able to help you out with that. So are there any questions?
Representative Pereira.
So this past year, you've been a very vocal member of USG. How would you feel about not voicing your opinions during GA?
I think it's good. I think it'll be because as important as it is, for me to speak out and voice my opinions, I think it's equally important for me to have the chance to sit back and listen to what everyone else says. And I think it's good also to have an opportunity to work behind the scenes in USG, to kind of have that role of helping with professional development too. So it's something I look forward to.
Treasurer Russell.
That was my question.
Any other questions for the candidate? Representative Pereira.
I'm assuming that you'd still be wanting to go to academic affair, that was bad grammar. I feel like you'd still be wanting to go to academic affair meetings. Do you feel that your time would be compromised making agendas and different things along with exam?
I don't think so. Actually, a measure that I'm taking next year, right now I'm currently involved on the junior board of the Indian Student Association, and I'm actually dropping that from my extracurricular commitments for next semester in order to make room for time, to do things like that. So when it comes to having time conflicts and things like that, I think I'm already taking steps to make sure that that sort of thing doesn't happen.
All right, any other questions? I have a question. What's your favorite font?
I'm gonna have to go with Wingdings 3.
Representative Copeland.
How are you going to keep yourself motivated by the end of second semester? Because you're going to be pretty bored typing things up.
I couldn't hear the end of
Oh,
it.
how are you going to keep yourself motivated by after let's say 10 GAs or something?
Usually flows through my veins. It's not something that will just leave me second semester. It is part of my essence as a human being. So I assure you, Arjun, that will not be an issue.
Thank you, Representative Paul. Please step outside the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, I bulleted 3 reasons why I would really like to be the elections commissioner for fall 2014. Freshman elections. First, I have extensive knowledge of the My Experience collegiate platform. I think it's going to be very important to have going forward, especially as we work to collaborate and bring all of our elections in line with the other SEC organizations. Second, I'm organized and detail-oriented. And third, I'm really excited to change up how we do the freshman constituency, particularly moving towards a general population model. I'm open for questions.
Representative Solomon.
Can you go a bit more into detail about your third point?
Sure. So currently our freshman representatives, they represent their houses. I don't think that's the best way to represent our freshman constituents, and I would like to switch to a model of where we take the number of freshmen that come in next year and represent one representative per 100 first years or so. I think that would benefit USG in a lot of ways. One, it would make the elections much more competitive and a much more desirable position on campus. It would help with PR. Also, it avoids any of the tricky situations we run into when it comes to filling positions. Sometimes some of the first year caucus positions, they sit vacant for almost a whole year. So I think it would solve a lot of issues there. Any other questions?
Representative Tate.
What, past experiences and your personality traits do you think will prepare you best for going out there and getting your students motivated to run for USG?
That's a good question. I have some experience. I worked in my fraternity on recruitment and working on the recruitment committee, so I think that might help a little bit with as far as recruiting first years to run for a position at USG. Also, just being on exec this past year and participating in discussions about elections and what they should look like and what we could do to promote USG. I think those are the 2 main experiences that would help out.
Representative Easter.
So elections didn't have themes. It was Portal, I think when I did it, and then the most recent one was What Will You Change? Do you have any theme ideas?
USG, but I think I could effectively manage and do a lot of the logistical planning and framework, and delegate those specific tasks that need to get done as far as representing USG in the student activities fair and getting, potential representatives that way, while still being able to manage the logistics behind the scenes.
Alright, thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Williams, please name the other candidate. Representative Williams? Does she need us to halt the
She needs us to halt this part of the election, she's stuck with Matt, so.
Is there a motion for a 3-minute recess?
Motion for a 3-minute recess.
Alright, we have a second, motion for a 3-minute
Needs to be an
recess.
inside the room recess though.
All those in favor of a 3-minute recess, please say aye. Ayes opposed, please say no. Ayes have it, the motion, I guess that's just, is there any discussion points regarding that? Vice President Jeff.
I think 3 has worked out really well this year. And my recommendation as in finance would be to keep it at 3.
So we'll be doing this voting similar to amounts. We'll just be taking any suggestions, and then as Chair McKee is doing right now, each letter on your eye clicker will designate the number of treasurers, and then we will vote. Treasurer 2.
As a treasurer, I completely, wholeheartedly agree with Justin. 3 has worked out very well for us. It's allowed us to split up the duties pretty evenly, and there haven't been any communication issues. So 3.
Any other discussion points? I'll allow one more minute on this discussion. Representative Wong.
Point of question to Lucy Backman, how many student groups do we have right now?
I want to say 204, but going through re-recognition, not all of those groups have submitted a re-recognition, so that number may drop a little bit going into the fall. But we wouldn't be we wouldn't have any fewer groups than we would have when we began the fall semester last semester.
Any other discussion points or proposed amounts? Representative Lee.
Point of question again, so we keep back in, and I guess the treasurers as well. What would you see as cons to raising the number of treasurers?
I think one big con of raising the number of treasurers is that currently our constitution defines treasurer as an executive position. So creating any more treasurer positions would make roughly a third of exec be treasurers. I would caution against that.
Treasurer Rossley.
Another con is that when it was just Connor and I, we were dying. But if you have too many, communication also becomes a really significant issue. So the fewest possible without dropping all your schoolwork to be a treasurer basically is the best number. And I will have at the next GA, which will hopefully be much shorter, think about what our treasurer should be.
Any other points? Alright, seeing none, I just spoke with Chair McKee, and it turns out that our iClicker system has not been rigged up, so we are actually going to go by hand vote. So we're going to go with the highest amount versus the lowest amount. So all those in favor of having 3 treasurers, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All those in favor of 1 treasurer, please raise your hand. Please lower your hands. All those in favor of no treasurer. And please lower your hands. All those who wish to abstain, please lower your hands. And alright, it is 3 treasurers. And with that, we will move into, do we close nominations yet? I don't believe we did so. Is there a motion to close nominations for Representative Trujillo?
Motion to close nominations for treasurer.
Alright, moved and seconded to close nominations for treasurer. I believe that we have, four candidates with us today. Representative Williams.
Could Acting Chief Judicial Officer and Internal Development Chair Matt McKee please clarify how we will be voting for treasurers? So everybody is aware.
I can. So there are now 5 candidates running, the 4 in your agenda, plus speaker choice. So the ballot that we'll be passing around will have a couple lines on it, 3 lines specifically. So you'll vote for now, since we're electing 3. You'll write in the 3 people that you want to be treasurer, and the people with the highest vote totals will get it. So it's effectively you're voting 3 people into 3 positions. If there's a tie based off of that, then we'll come back and do a runoff based on that tie. But it's a lot easier to handle a tie in a not instant runoff for this type of position than in instant runoff.
Okay, just to clarify, actually, I apologize, I rescind my nomination. Thank you for the suggestion, but I was thinking about it, and I don't believe that I'm qualified enough, so thank you, Vice President. With that, we will move with 4 candidates. So I believe we have Representative Mansour, Representative Potter, Representative Wishner, and Representative Ward. So we'll begin with the order that the letter of intent was submitted. Representative Ward, you are up first. The other 2 candidates, please step outside the room. Representative Gordon.
Point of person privilege.
Granted.
This was gonna be really good, so you're gonna be started.
3 minutes on 3 minutes on the clock for your speech, and any time left remaining will be left for question and answer from the assembly. So you may begin when you're ready.
Hi everyone, my name is Brian Ward. Thank you very much for considering me to be your treasurer for next year. Part of why I want this position is I think it would be a great opportunity for me to fully immerse myself in this organization, become a more dedicated member. I've never missed a finance committee meeting all year. I really love being a member of the committee, and I think that this position would be a great way for me to step up. I'm super organized. I've served as the secretary this last semester since Chippy was promoted, and I think I've done a good job with the minutes. I'm pretty personable. I think another aspect that I would bring to this position is I'm also an officer, or I was an officer for a USG organization, Ultimate Frisbee Club, so I think that gives me a unique perspective and it allows me to see the whole funding process from both sides. So with that, I'll open up to questions because treasurers get lots of questions, so I think that's an important skill in the industry.
Any questions for Representative Ward?
Yes.
Vice President Lee.
How did you deal with an angry student?
So I think I would approach it with a firm stance. I don't think I would ever cower if an angry student were to send me an email, but I think I would keep my cool. I would never create a confrontation.
Representative Williams.
How much time do you expect to put into this position each week?
One of the first times I considered running for treasurer, Justin Beckman had mentioned the treasurers for 2 years ago, Laura and Levi, that they used to have these parties in the USG office late at night, and that's just the kind of position I'm really looking for in this organization. That's just definitely my working style. I work really well late at night, in the dark, I guess. A lot of hours late at night.
Any other questions for Representative Williams?
Do you believe that it's better to have 3 extremely strong treasurers or a treasurer group that works cohesively together?
I would say a group that works cohesively together, but I would say that in order for it to work cohesively, each member would need to put forth a lot of effort, and they would all be strong candidates.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we will end it there. Thank you, Representative Ward. Please bring in the next candidate, Representative Mansour. Representative Latour, you have 3 minutes on the clock. Any time left remaining will be left for question and answers from the assignment. So you may begin when you're ready.
Okay, hello GA. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Sheena and I'm here running for treasurer. So my past experience with USG has been as a representative for the arts and sciences. This past semester I also served as the speaker of the caucus, and through that I've developed a lot of organization skills, a lot of time management, and have really understood how USG works a little better. In addition to that, I've had the pleasure of working on finance committee, and one of my favorite things about finance committee is working as a liaison for the academic groups. One thing that I felt like when I was meeting with a lot of these groups, I didn't understand some of the funding processes, so I always had to go refer to the treasurers to get back to the groups to answer their questions. And I'm hoping as treasurer I can more effectively answer the questions that all these groups had and meet with them more and email back and forth with them. One goal I have as treasurer is to make the finance committee more accessible, and I think that everyone on the committee is awesome and that not enough people know that they're as open and accessible, which is kind of the idea we had behind our mass funding workshop that we did this past semester with Jim and Karen. And I think in addition to helping them with mass funding, they got to meet with their liaisons, and I think that helped mass funding this year. So I hope to have the opportunity to bring more new ideas and different perspective to USG and the finance team.
Any other questions or any questions from before the candidate? Representative Williams.
Do you believe it's better to have 3 individually strong treasurers or a treasurer group that works cohesively together?
Let's see. I think that it's important to have 3 strong treasurers because I think that if they're strong, they will be also effective in working with each other. Because if they're strong in communicating with their groups, they'll be strong in communicating with each other.
Any questions? Treasurer Kennedy.
What steps do you plan to deal with approximately 10 to 30 emails every single day that you have to answer that day?
Well, next year I'm a senior. My class load is not as heavy as it is this year, so I think they'll have enough time for that. In addition, this would be my main extracurricular other than working in my lab and things like that. So I think I'll have the time to be prompt in answering my emails and getting the communication done.
Vice President Lee.
I'm sorry for asking such a personal question, but are you pre-med?
No.
I can take one more question. Seeing President Allen.
So I guess just what's the one thing that you most look forward to being in the position? Is it talking to people? Is it giving people their money back? Making them happy?
I think my one thing I'm really looking forward to is working with the groups and kind of getting to understand how they fulfill their purpose and how they run their events and just kind of helping them do that more successfully with more experience I'll get as a treasurer.
All right, and with that, thank you. Please bring the next candidate, Representative Williams, which is Representative Potter. You have 3 minutes on the clock for your speech, and any time left remaining will be left for question and answer time for the assembly. So you may begin when you're ready.
Hello GA, I'm Julian, how you doing? Great, glad to hear it. Oh, I'm doing fine, thank you. So I'm here running for treasurer. I've been on the finance committee for about a year now, and it's actually something I look forward to every week. I know that might be surprising to some of you, but I really get a kick out of it. It's something I really enjoy, and I think that's something I can bring into next year as treasurer. I consider myself a pretty put-together person. I try to get things done as soon as possible, and I think that's pretty good for treasurer because I know if you get behind on all the things you have to do with that, it's just going to snowball, and you're going to have some long hours in the USG office, and I do not want to do that. One thing I really want to do as treasurer is sort of lead a revamping, I guess, of the financial liaison position. As of right now, I'm the financial liaison for special interest groups, which compiles of about 50 plus groups. And what I do is I just try to be there as a contact for them. If they have any questions, they can come and ask me. But usually they don't, because they don't really know about me. I've probably sent in a couple emails to them, probably like 3 a semester, one to remind them about mass funding, 3 recognitions, that sort of thing. One thing I really want to see happen is to really revamp that entire process. Maybe have like a weekly message, you know, give them an update on how the finance committee is going, that sort of thing. And I would also like to see like financial liaisons maybe go to like one meeting of an organization like a month, maybe do like a funding workshop, just so they know the whole process. Because I know when they email me, a lot of them really don't have like any idea, and I really like to help that. And with that, I open it to questions.
Questions for Representative Potter? Representative Williams?
So, I'm sure the GA hasn't heard this question yet, and cool shades. Do you think it's better to have a treasurer group where you have 3 very individually strong treasurers, or one where the treasurers work in cohesion?
Glad you asked that, Colin. I think it's important to have 3 strong treasurers. I think if you have 3 very strong people, 3 people that are very passionate about what they do, I think you will get a lot more accomplished. As long, I think all the candidates are very strong people, and I also think that we all mesh pretty well together, so I wouldn't see any problem with having 3 strong treasurers, because I think we can all work perfectly fine together.
Treasurer Kennedy?
Given the situation where you have an issue with a student group and your VP of Finance gives you an order to deal with the situation in a way you don't agree with, what would you do in that situation?
I honestly, even if I disagree with it, I do realize that it is something that is, you do get the final say. Like, the VP of Finance does get the final say, and I will respect that. I might talk to you and I'll discuss to you about the merits of that. I might disagree with you and try to make points in favor of my opinion, but if the final decision is the final decision, I'm not afraid to, do what I have to do, so.
Okay, thank you. And with that, we are going to bring the last candidate, which is Representative Boyce. Representative Boyce, you have 3 minutes on the clock for your speech. Any time left remaining, we left with question and answers from the assembly. So you may begin when you're ready.
Thank you. So the first thing that I remember about Finance Committee, especially with USG, was when I was in the orientation program, and Dan Gallo had the microphone and was like, yeah, don't join Finance Committee. So I took that, and I was a little hesitant, a little reluctant joining, but look where I am now. I've seen the angry emails, I've seen the mass funding stress, I've seen the debates, I've seen the paperwork, I've seen everything there is to be about Finance Committee. And I can certainly say that I've never been more passionate about any line of work than working with Finance Committee for USG. It is evident through what I've been doing with mass funding workshop that I want to continue if I'm elected treasurer. I generally think that working with students is what the goal for Finance Committee should be about. It's not just about paperwork, it should be about making things approachable to the student body so that they understand the intricacies that underlie certain aspects of the Finance Committee. And so that's why, if I'm elected to the treasurer position, that I'd like to create actually a mass funding committee in addition to the that is also composed of people in the Finance Committee as well as people who are already in GA. Because I saw when working with Representative Mauther and VP-elect Kennedy that we definitely honed in a lot of important things when we were doing this. And so, honestly, the first thing that I really want to stress about it is that I'm passionate to work as the treasurer, and that I'll learn anything I need to. I've talked with the treasurer Toomey and Treasurer Astley already, and definitely talked with Kennedy a lot. I can honestly say that this is something I really want to do, so I'm opening this up to questions now. So it is obvious that there's a lot of paperwork that goes along with the position, but something that I want to implement is actually meeting with groups that are part of the recognized union of groups that we recognize for GA. And so that means we send email to competitive groups around campus saying, hey, I'm doing this right now, what do you need help with? You know, 'cause obviously being there for an outreach for them, and also still trying to, you know, keep office hours as you all do for the paperwork and doing whatever I need to do to fulfill my obligations as a treasurer.
Treasurer Turner?
So, which do you think is better, having 3 individually strong treasurers or a cohesive group of 3 treasurers? Which one is more effective?
Well, I think that both have their own merit, but I think that having one cohesively strong treasurer is obviously something that's very important to finance committee itself. If everyone's kept on the same page, everyone knows what's going on, and everyone can verify that, you know, what is being done is correct and done well, I think there can be nothing more efficient and successful than that.
Alright, and with that, all the time will elapse, so thank you. Representative Washington, please step outside the room.
You guys have a move on, so.
A campaign works is the movement against apartheid in South Africa. Now, you are all probably well aware that universities removed their holdings from South African companies that profited from apartheid during the 1980s, and thus created a political climate in which it was possible for nations to pass trade sanctions that forced the apartheid government to end apartheid. In this case, we are trying to use the same tactic to create a political climate in which governments are able to do what they need to do to address anthropogenic climate change. The resolution explains the need in the whereas clauses, the need to burn only about 20% of the proven coal, gas, and oil reserves that these companies hold. The companies have a business model that, however, that says dig them all up, burn them all. We don't care if 400,000 people are being killed every year because of droughts, food shortages, floods, superstorms, you name it really. And we hope that you'll pass this. Thanks very much.
Any questions for the speakers? President Gallo.
Sorry, not specifically the bill, but can we just step back and can you guys introduce yourselves? I'm not sure everyone's familiar with SSC.
SSC is a ad hoc committee of the student government. We are part of you, even if you don't see us a lot. Sort of like economics is actually part of arts and sciences. Maybe Grace would like to say a bit about that.
I don't really know what else to say, but I'll introduce myself. I'm Grace Cameron, and I'm an executive member here just to kind of help Jack. He's the forerunner of this, but yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Treasurer Kennedy?
Just a quick question. You mentioned it. I didn't see it directly in resolution, but it might be there. You define companies with majority stake.
Yes. In the whereas clauses, we explain that for the purpose of this resolution, a fossil fuel company should be considered one of 200 particular companies. You can find a URL that will take you to a list of the 200 companies if you care to look into it. In the appendix, if you would like, I would of course be happy to read off the list in full, but you've been here for 2 hours and might not like that very much.
Representative Williams.
So I have a question and a follow-up. So I looked through the list of companies, and some of those companies are engaging in alternative energy sources. So as an example, the relevant Shell company has a sizable wind energy business and biofuels and hydrogen So I'm just curious how this is balancing things like that, where these companies are trying to grow that, but there's obviously hesitancy on the part of investors because it's not as profitable. So how does this kind of maybe either curtail that, or how do you see that working?
Well, on the subject of Royal Dutch Shell in particular, the companies that do this largely have no particular commitment to developing renewable energy resources. They have, and since you brought up Shell, I might mention, they also, most of them have a history of very unethical behavior in other areas. Shell, for instance, was involved in 7,000 environmental activists being hanged in Nigeria a few years ago. Like I said, Shell has made no commitment to not drill and sell to be burnt its reserves. So I don't think there's any real evidence that they are putting any serious effort or attention into the issue of wind, for instance, beyond simple public relations. I can return to that in a minute if you like, sorry. But I need to just pull out something here.
Vice President Lee.
So if we pass this in GA, how do you plan to proceed with your initiative?
Could you please repeat that?
So if we pass this in GA today, how do you plan to proceed with your initiative?
The Graduate Student Senate has expressed an interest in hearing on this subject as well. We are hoping to go to them next. They said they'd like to see what resolution you passed. We also plan to go to the Faculty Senate and take the same case we're taking to you now to them. After that, we don't really know what the administration's response will be, and we have to keep an open mind for how we're going to proceed after that. It all depends on what the administration says.
Representative Hall.
So the nature of this resolution implies that if we stop funding all fossil fuel companies, that the world is ready to move into a type of energy in which we don't need that sort of fossil fuel, in that, you know, sustainability and that sort of thing is already present and already ready to be used universally. But I feel like Colin said, although a lot of the companies on this list may have displayed unethical behavior in the past, if they're taking measures now to ensure that in the future we can move to a world where we don't have to rely on fossil fuels, might this resolution be better focused on those companies that are making little to no effort to transition into that sort of world, rather than punishing the companies that are taking as much measures as they can while still remaining profitable?
Well, I'm glad you returned to Colin's question, because I would actually like to read a little something about that. I'll do that in a moment. Like I said, none of these companies have transitioned their business. They may do a little something on the side. Exxon's been talking about how they're going to grow algae to power cars for a long time now. They haven't really done anything with that. It's just something they talk about. Shell is still making an effort to drill in the Arctic in partnership with Russia's Gazprom. Are you all aware of recent developments in Russian human? I shouldn't go into that. That's a tangent, sorry. I feel like I've forgotten part of your question. I started answering it and you had two parts. Could you remind me what the second part was, please?
So I asked that this resolution might be better focused on those companies that are making little to no efforts in investing in sustainable energy sources, rather than those companies that are simultaneously managing to invest in alternative energy while maintaining profitability with fossil fuels.
Yes. Sorry about that. The other thing is that there is a sort of enduring myth that we don't have the ability to transition to a renewable energy economy in the fairly near future. This is largely the product of industry-funded, you could call it biased research, or you could call it propaganda, that comes from the fossil fuel industry. Iceland, for example, produces more than 99% of its energy for buildings and other stationary energy using sources from renewable energies, and nearer 100% than 99%. Costa Rica produces 98%. A team of researchers from Stanford recently took a look at New York, and if you might be familiar with New York, it's not rich in sunlight, nor particularly rich in wind the way Arizona or the Great Plains is. They found it would still be feasible not only for New York to replace its entire electrical grid by 2030 with renewables, with a significant investment, but not one that's going to bring any serious pain to the economy. It could not only provide all of the electricity for its electrical grid currently, but could also provide enough electricity to power electric cars for everybody in the state who's currently using a non-electric car. And this is something that could be done in the next 20 years if they went for it. By passing this resolution, we would hope that Case Western Reserve, especially the undergraduate student body and undergraduate student government, will help contribute to a climate where that's something that people want to do. People, policymakers feel comfortable saying, yes, we're going to go and do that now. It's what people want. And partly in response to what you said, and also partly on, I'm not using this microphone right. I'm sorry. And also partly to follow up with Colin. The fossil fuel industry is at odds with developing clean tech infrastructure needs. These aren't actually my words, just full disclaimer. In past decades, fossil fuel companies have shown little to no interest in shifting their business models away from extraction and have lobbied heavily to keep their monopoly on the world's energy systems. Companies like BP are decreasing investment in clean energy instead of increasing them. In addition, because of the growing risk of the carbon bubble, I can answer questions about that if you like. A number of studies show that there's a potential decline of companies with carbon-intensive operations in coming years. Exxon could still make a profit as an energy company if it transitioned its wealth over to renewables, but they won't do it because there isn't government regulation. Not because but they would do it if there were government regulation. They're not going to do it just because they wake up one morning and decide to. We're all complicit in fossil fuel consumption, and we should each do what we can, within reason, to reduce our own use. But the real culprits for the fossil fuel economy that we all find ourselves more or less locked into are the ones who are rigging the system, the fossil fuel companies. The largest 200 coal, gas, and oil companies own the vast majority of the proven oil, gas, and coal reserves and represent a significant percentage of the entire oil, gas, and coal market. These companies, incidentally, are also the largest contributors to the political campaigns of politicians of all stripes in this country and around the world who are writing the laws that are giving billions of dollars in subsidies to these companies and doing not a whole lot to address climate change.
I want to say two more points. Representative Solomon?
Can you go over a little bit what the American College and University President's climate commitment is?
I'd be happy to. That microphone just there was something wrong with it. Well, it's not it, me.
You know what, going ahead is though, because it's being recorded, so you're on, still, yeah, you're fine.
At any rate, the American Colleges and Universities Climate Action Plan is a commitment that university presidents sign on to, along with their board of trustees, to become carbon neutral by a certain date. Case Western Reserve has committed to make its own campus carbon neutral by 2050. And we're one of many who are taking this initiative. It's a great thing, and I only wish we could do more, but we can do more. This.
Last point, Treasurer Kennedy.
Oh, sorry. Didn't know his last point, I was just gonna call it previous question.
Vice President Williams.
Prior to writing the legislation, have you worked as a council, as an ad hoc, to meet with some of these folks, to sit down and discuss what you're asking for in this resolution, in this bill? And that you found it was not listened to, nobody would take a meeting? Like, have you tried to work with any of the folks in here on the administrative level?
Yes and no. When we drafted the legislation, we thought it was appropriate to start by talking to the students who are paying tuition, who are, the heart of the university. We wanted to make this a grassroots effort. So we are starting by taking it to students. Before we began writing policies or advocating anything in particular, we did talk about the idea with the chief investment officer. We asked about seeing what was in the endowment as a formality, really, because we were well aware at that time and our suspicions were confirmed. Private universities will not tell people what's in their endowment for anything. So this legislation does not entail the university needing to release what's in its endowment. This is just something that's not done. It would simply ask for a vote from the board of trustees, and we would trust the fund managers to do what they said.
Alright, and with that, thank you so much. And we're going to actually move into discussion with the assembly. So,
Thank you very much. Should we leave?
you're welcome to stay.
Okay, thanks.
Alright, and with that, we'll move to discussion. I'll allot 5 minutes for discussion on this resolution. Are there any points? Treasurer Asa.
So a couple of years back, I think the university signed a kind of like a contract or something, and it's mentioned in one of the climate commitment, that we would try to be, like, we'd have like a zero footprint, or I can't remember, carbon neutral by like 50 years.
2050.
And I think this is one step in that direction, because I know it still seems like we're kind of far away from that. But I think this is a good step.
Representative Feasty.
I think that this resolution is a way to hold the university accountable. I think that our university, as with all universities, has a tendency to use buzzwords like carbon neutral, like university center, and they do, and they have certain implied meanings, and they sound good, and they're a good recruitment tool. But it's part of our commitment as a student government to make sure that what they say and what they do are consistent. And they said that they're going to make a commitment to be carbon neutral. That's great, but that implies a commitment to overall improving the carbon impact globally. And I think that this is a really important step to that bigger goal that's going to hold the administration accountable and send them a signal too that we aren't just going to let them use these words completely. They have to mean it.
Representative Rapp.
Yeah, I was going to say that I also think that a resolution like this that holds so much significance will also propel other green initiatives, so it will really speed up the process and actually get us to reach that goal by 2050.
Representative Wong.
I
think it's really important for the university to address the climate change issue, because I think it's really critical for the future of our society. However, I was reading this report from Bloomberg, and they're saying that all the university endowments only contributed 1 out of 150 of all the oil company investments and holdings. That there are some colleges that have been trying to withdraw that do that divestment, and it has created and it will not create any impact to these oil companies. And we are investing our endowment to these companies, and they are pretty profitable actually. That is, since it's not impacting these big companies, and our endowments, our profits actually used to do the useful things like medical research, engineering research. They're actually some of the core value of our university. And I just don't see that how is withdrawing from this thing more beneficial than like advocating our students to live a more environmentally friendly life, and is that comparing to lessen the potential benefit of our university.
SSC?
I appreciate your question very much. This is actually a question that has been brought by not just Bloomberg but others to the leaders of our movement, both here and off the campus. And the answer is this: divestment in and of itself does not change policy. When universities divested from South Africa, for instance, their holdings were simply bought by other owners. The changing of money from one hand to the other hand is not the significance of divestment as I articulated or did my best to articulate earlier. You'll be the judge of my success, I suppose. The goal is to have venerable institutions like Case Western Reserve University, like Yale, like Columbia, like MIT, say, this is absolutely a moral issue, and we will not, as an institution, involve ourselves in this. Promoting climate change denial, trying to prevent policy to mitigate it, is a terrible thing to do. It's killing hundreds of thousands of people every year. I'm sorry for repeating myself. And people need to be held accountable for it. This message from institutions of higher learning, from city governments as well. I will mention that several tens of city governments and county governments have voted, for instance, to divest their pension funds from these 200 companies. Will create a political climate in which we can get the necessary sound, well thought out legislation and executive action that we need from the world's various governments to address the problem.
Representative Williams?
So, I guess I'll first off admit that I have a pretty strong bias in this, if only because I do have 3 family members who work for oil companies, including Royal Dutch Shell and ExxonMobil. But I guess the question I would then have is, if this isn't really going to make an impact on the environment, like if this isn't actually going to cause anything to change, then how is this any different than an oil company, for example, just saying, oh, we have this wind business? To me, it's just a way for the university to gain its own notoriety to say, we don't invest or we don't have our endowment in these fossil fuel groups. And I guess and the other reason why I said that is because I had one of my family members who worked for Shell Wind for a while. And I can tell you it's not an insignificant project. Again, I'm biased in that sense that I think it is, but in the United States alone, they power close to 500,000 homes, which again, they're trying to grow, but the problem is that without that capital investment from people, you can't make that happen. So I guess I look at this resolution, and I think it sounds really great on paper, but I guess I just look at it and say, I'm not sure that it has any actual effect, and I'm not sure that of the actual feasibility that you mentioned that there's hundreds of universities that are considering doing this, but I'd be curious to see if they've actually been successful.
And have been successful.
Alright, with that, in 5 minutes, a lot of this discussion
discussion by 2 minutes.
Is there a second? All right, moved and seconded to extend discussion by 2 more minutes. All those in favor of extending discussion, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no.
No.
All those in favor, please raise your hands. Please just lower your hands. All those opposed, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All those who wish to abstain, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. And I believe that the negative has it, and the discussion has now ended. Unless there's any further motion to do anything else with the resolution, we'll move to proceeding with the votes, and we will pass it. Or not pass it, depending on the vote. Vice President Torres.
Motion to table.
Alright, moved and seconded to table this resolution. Is there any discussion regarding the tabling of resolution R23-08? Vice President Torres.
I'd like to say, I do recognize the importance to the Student Sustainability Council, and I think you made a very impactful point yesterday when you spoke to exec about how the fact is that climate change doesn't slow down because we table a bill. So it's very important to address this. That being said, as you know, you had to wait outside for a long time, and we've been in this meeting for a long time, and I don't want that to negatively affect anyone's kind of thought process in discussing this bill, and that's the only reason I'm looking to table.
Any other discussion points for tabling this resolution? President Gallagher.
I don't know if it's too late to do this, but I'd actually be more in favor of referring it back to the committee, so they can take all of the feedback that they've gotten today and perhaps add some additional clauses or change the be resolved clauses. Just because our next meeting is our last meeting, and I would hate to see people disagreeing over the wording of the legislation and then not passing it. I don't know if it's too late.
If you'd like to refer to the committee, then we'll first fail the motion to table, and we'll make another motion to refer back to the committee. Are there any other points regarding the discussion to table this resolution? Vice President Conlon.
Point of information, if we move it back to the committee, do they have full say on whether or not it passes?
Ms. Ricky?
No, it would be referred back to the committee for further work from the committee or the council, and then it would be brought back to assembly. Assembly would have to pass it itself to have this be a resolution.
Any other discussion points regarding tabling this resolution? Advice of Representative Williams.
I would also hasten to say that it's a good opportunity to go into your constituency in whatever way you outreach and share this. This is a pretty big thing. It's incredibly well done, and you to be commended. But it's a big thing. It's a big thing to say that students feel this way. So, and then I have a question, Matt, probably for you. The tabling or returning to committee, at what point then does this organization is able to, like, I have suggestions for some of the rewrite that might help further the message, like, where does that factor in?
So if we table it, it would just be brought up as is during our next meeting.
Got it.
If it's referred back to the Student Sustainability Council or to any other committee, the committee can freely edit and do any work on it.
So
and
we
then
can email.
Reintroduce it brand new again at the next meeting.
So we can email
Absolutely.
our thoughts.
So if there's any significant work that you feel is going to be done outside of what can be accomplished by easy motions to amend, it would be better to refer it back to the council, do more work on it, and resolutions don't need tables, it can be introduced and passed next meeting. Anew.
Yeah, if it's referred back to the committee, like Mr. McKee said, the committee will work on the resolution, and you're free to make recommendation, and the Student Sustainability Council will then decide whether or not to adopt your changes or your suggestions. But if you'd like to formally make the amendment and to vote on it, then we could also move to amend as well. I'm just laying out the options for the General Assembly. All right, and with that, we will continue discussion on tabling this resolution. Are there any other points? Representative Williams.
All previous questions.
Second.
Moved and seconded to call to previous question. All those in favor of ending debate, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Ayes have it, the motion is adopted. The debate has now ended. Now we'll move to voting on tabling of the motion. Does that clear your system? Okay, and with that, all those in favor of tabling the motion, tabling the resolution, please press A. All those opposed, please press B. All those who wish to abstain, please press C.
Point of information.
Representative Houston.
Just to clarify for the assembly, if you vote to table, that means we cannot send it back to the committee.
That's correct.
Thank you.
single fails. Now we'll move back into the motion of the General Assembly Bill Resolution R23-08. Any other motions from the Assembly? President Gallo.
I move to refer resolution R 23-08 back to the Student Sustainability Council.
Second.
Alright, it's been moved and seconded to refer the resolution R23-08 back to the Student Sustainability Council. Now we'll move to discussion regarding the referral. Are there any other discussion points? Seeing none, President Gallo.
Call for discussion.
Moved and seconded to end discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Ayes have it, motion is adopted. The discussion has now ended. All those in favor of referring to the committee, please press A. All those opposed, please press B. All those who wish to abstain, please press C. The ayes have it and the motion is adopted. General Assembly Resolution R23-08 has referred back to the Student Sustainability Council. And with that, we'll move back into new business. Representative Surretti.
Point of information for the Student Sustainability Council. When are y'all's meetings so that we have like a deadline to get suggestions and like our feedback from our constituents to give to you so that you have time to edit this before the next meeting?
Actually, Matt will try once again to confidently use the microphone. We meet at 7:30 on Wednesdays each week.
And USG.
In the USG office.
And with that, we are going back to new business.